Hey everyone, welcome to Homeschool. Hope everybody are doing fine out there. And this video is really a special video because I'm doing this on the request of many students. The video is specially for the students who are writing 2021 SSLC board examination, that is Karnataka board examination. See, the video is all about a target of scoring 50 to 60 marks out of 80. Okay, so really a helpful video, and I recommend everybody to concentrate on a video and share this video to your friends also, because many of the students have been deprived of education during this COVID time, so that you have to help each other. So try to share this video to a maximum people so that everybody will get benefit out of it, because I have selected the questions on doing so much of research by observing the previous question papers and by observing model papers of this year and by seeing various other sample papers. So each and every question was selected very carefully. Okay, so that everybody, maximum of you, have to get benefit and score a very good mark confidently in your exam, that is 2021 examination. Clear? So nothing to worry about science here. So everything I'll tell you in detail, all the answers I will discuss, and already the two model papers have been discussed in a channel. Their video links are provided in the description, so do watch those sample papers also, because they are the sample papers given by Karnataka board for the students who are going to write this 2021 board examination. So do watch videos on sample papers also. Fine. And in the sample paper, I already discussed that this year paper pattern is changed. See, the paper, question paper will have three parts, that is part A, and part A is on physics part, and this has a weightage of around 28 marks. So all the questions under part A belong to physics chapters. And next is our part B. Part B questions are on chemistry chapters, which is having a weightage of around 25 marks. And part C is on biology chapters, which has a weightage of around 27 marks. So altogether, you have to write for 80 marks. Isn't it? Okay, so in today's video, I am discussing all important questions, like all compulsory questions that they can ask from chemistry part. See, this video is specially on a chemistry part. I will cover all the 4 chapters that is there in chemistry, that is acids, bases and salts, and later you have metals and non-metals, carbon and its compounds, and periodic classification of elements. See, among these 4 chapters, carbon and its compounds and metals and non-metals are the most important chapters. Maximum questions you may get from these chapters. So you have to concentrate these chapters carefully. Right? And in the next video, I will concentrate about the physics part, and in the third video, I will concentrate about the biology part. Like that, in 3 videos, I am going to cover all the important questions that is necessary to score the marks of around 50 to 60 out of 80. So let us not waste our time, quickly go for the chemistry chapters. So this video is all about the chemistry chapters. And the very first chapter in chemistry is acids, bases and salts this year. And from this particular chapter, MCQs 1 mark and 2 mark questions can be asked. And also from this chapter, at least one diagram they will ask. So what is the compulsory? The very first compulsory question from the chapter is diagrams. That is, there are 2 diagrams from the chapter. First one is, draw a diagram to show acid solution in water conducts electricity. So this diagram is there in page 22, figure number 2.3. So the diagram which is there in page 22, figure number 2.3 is very important. And the second diagram from the same chapter that they can ask is, draw diagram to show reaction of zinc granules with dilute H2SO4 and testing hydrogen gas by burning. So this particular figure you will observe in page 19, figure number 2. Okay, so these are the two important diagrams from the chapter. At least one diagram compulsorily you can expect for 2 or 3 marks. Clear? So if you can learn these two diagrams, 2 or 3 marks is compulsory. And along with these two diagrams, there is one diagram from metals and non-metals, that is action of steam. Action of steam on metals. So that you can observe in page 43, figure number 3.3. Right? So these are the three common and most asked diagrams from chemistry part. So if you can study these three diagrams, I can guarantee you that you will definitely get 2 or 3 marks from the chemistry part. That is, out of 25, 2 or 3 marks can be asked from these three diagrams. Right? So they are very much easy. You can refer the textbook and practice the diagrams, and that is compulsory. Right? Fine. And coming to the next question from the chapter, what is strong acid, weak acid with examples? At the same time, what is strong base and weak bases? This is a very simple question. So what is a strong acid? Strong acid is the acid which dissociates completely in water. So any acid, when you put it in a water, if it is dissociating, if it is breaking completely, then it is called as strong acid. Example for strong acid is HCl, H2SO4, etc. Clear? And now they are asking the definition of weak acid also. So what do you mean by weak acid? Which do not dissociate where? In water completely is called weak acid. Example for weak acid is acetic acid, that is CH3COOH. At least one example try to remember for strong acid and weak acid. Clear? Coming to the next question, what are olfactory indicators? Give example. Say olfactory indicators whose smell changes when dipped in acid or base is called olfactory indicators. Right? So this is the definition of olfactory indicators. So they can ask you the examples. Examples for olfactory indicators are onion, clove, vanilla, right? Various other examples are there. At least 2 examples try to remember. Coming to the next question, how acids react with metals? Which gas is liberated? It's a very famous question. How acids react with metals? What will you write? When acid reacts with metal, hydrogen gas is liberated. Which gas is liberated? Hydrogen gas is liberated. Say you can write one example here. Say for example, you have HCl plus the metal you can select is sodium. So what do you get? You will get NaCl plus H2. So you should always balance the equations whenever you write. So let us take 2HCl. So 2, right? Say, remember, whenever acid reacts with a metal, which gas is liberated? hydrogen gas is liberated. And how do you detect the hydrogen gas? Hydrogen gas burns with pop sound. Okay, it will give pop sound. That way you can identify hydrogen gas, right? So based on this concept, MCQ or 1 mark can be asked. Very important concept. Second question, how acids react with metal carbonate? Which gas is liberated? Acid when react with a metal carbonate. Let me select metal carbonate as Na2CO3. On reaction with metal carbonate, what do you get? You will get salt plus water plus carbon dioxide. So which is the gas you are getting when acids react with metal carbonate? It is carbon dioxide. Clear? And how do you detect that it is carbon dioxide? Again, carbon dioxide is detected by lime water test. Which is the test? It is detected by lime water test. Clear? So again, based on this concept, 1 mark or MCQ question can be asked. So both concepts are very important. Clear? Fine. And the next question, what is neutralization reaction? Give example. So definition and example both are important here. So what is the definition you will give here? When acid reacts with base, salt and water are formed. So this reaction is called as neutralization reaction. So what is the example that you can mention? HCl plus NaOH. This is acid and this is base. On reaction, they would give you salt and water, isn't it? So what is the salt you will get? NaCl plus water. So this is the equation you can write and show for neutralization reaction. Very simple. Clear? Okay. So the next question. What is alkali? Give example. So what is an alkali? Water soluble bases. Water soluble bases are called as alkali, or the base which can be soluble in water is called alkali. Okay, so what are the examples that you can remember? NaOH and also KOH. Try to remember 2 examples in this case. Fine. And the next question, very important question. It can be asked for 1 mark. Why does dry HCl gas do not change the color of dry litmus paper? Because dry HCl do not undergo dissociation to give H plus ion, isn't it? Acid is the one on breaking, it will give H plus ion. Those who give H plus ion can only change the color of litmus paper. And when does HCl can give H plus ion or it will give any ions? Only in water. Okay, either HCl must be in a liquid form or litmus paper must be moist. Only then HCl can break down into H plus ion. Only when H plus ion is produced, it can change the color of the litmus paper. Okay, otherwise if the acid or base, if it is in a dry form or litmus paper is in a dry form, then color of the litmus paper cannot be changed. Either acid or base should be in a liquid form, or your litmus paper at least should be moist. Okay, it should be little wet. Only then litmus paper's color can be changed when you dip it in acid or base. Remember, this is a very conceptual question. You have to be careful. Next one. Solutions of glucose and alcohol does not exhibit acidic property. Why? Why? Because glucose and alcohol do not dissociate into ions. Do not dissociate into ions. See, this question can be asked for 1 mark. Anything which can dissociate into ions or break down into ions, those solutions only can conduct electricity, because ions will move. When they move, they carry current from one place to another place. So when something is not giving any ions in water, then it cannot conduct electricity. Say our glucose and alcohol also in water, they will not give any ions, so it will not conduct electricity. Clear? Fine. Now let us go for the next question. Why is it recommended that acid should be added to water and not water to acid? Why? See, we all very well know that whenever you are making a solution with acid in water, you should always add acid to water, right? So why we have to add acid to water? Because this process, addition of acid to water, is called as dilution, isn't it? And this dilution is exothermic. What do you mean by exothermic? Lots of heat is liberated, right? Since lots of heat is liberated, if you add water to acid, what would happen is the liquid may come up and splash on your face, and that is the reason we should always carefully add acid slowly into the water. So what is the answer you will give here? Because the dilution is exothermic, that is lots of heat is liberated. Okay, so this can be an answer if it is asked for 1 mark. Clear? Fine. Next question. What is acid rain? So what is acid rain? Very simple question. If rainwater's pH is less than 5.6, then it is called as acid rain. Isn't it? Very simple definition. Okay, next question. What are antacids? Give example. So what do you mean by antacids? Antacid is a medicine that is used to treat acidity. It is a medicine used to treat acidity, acidic problem, is called antacids. So what is the example you can give? Milk of magnesia. Milk of magnesia can be an example, which is nothing but magnesium hydroxide, isn't it? So these are few of the questions that can be asked from acids, bases and salts. See, in the chapter about the salts, everything is deleted, right? And so from the chapter, what we can guess is MCQ 1 mark and 2 mark questions can be asked. And definitely don't forget to practice the diagrams. See, one diagram compulsorily they may ask from this chapter. So I think if you can read these many questions from the chapter, you can easily score at least 4 marks. I'm telling you, you can score more than 4 marks, no doubt, but at least 4 marks definitely you can score if you can read these questions. Okay, fine. And let me go for the second chapter, metals and non-metals, which is the very important chapter for this year examination. See, the first important questions from metals and non-metals chapter. What are amphoteric oxides? Give examples. So what do you mean by amphoteric oxides? Oxides which can react with both acids and bases. Both acids and bases is called amphoteric oxides. Okay, so what are the examples you can give? Aluminium oxide is one example, that is Al2O3. Another example is zinc oxide. Say one more question can be asked. How amphoteric oxide can react with acid and base? So you can explain that by taking aluminium oxide. Say for example Al2O3, when it reacts with HCl, you will get AlCl3 plus H2O. In a similar way, when Al2O3 reacts with NaOH, that is with base, you will get NaAlO2 plus H2O, sodium aluminate plus H2O. So this is another type of a question they can ask you. So they would ask you how amphoteric oxide can react with acid and how it can react with base. Give reactions they would ask you. So you have to give these reactions and show the answer. Clear? So amphoteric oxide is one very important concept from the chapter. Fine. And the third question which is very important is, what is aluminothermite reaction? Right uses of it. So what do you mean by aluminothermite reaction? Say when you convert oxide into metal, I mean when you do reduction of oxide ore, you will use the reducing agent. If you are using aluminium as a reducing agent, then that reaction is called as aluminothermite reaction, right? Say what you can write here: during the reduction of oxide ore, if aluminium is used as reducing agent, RA in the sense reducing agent, I am showing it in a shortcut way, but you don't write RA in the examination, you have to write its full form, that is reducing agent. Then such a reaction is called as aluminothermite reaction. Okay, so can you write the equation here? Say for example Fe2O3, iron oxide. When I use aluminium as a reducing agent, what will happen? I will get Al2O3 plus Fe. Isn't it? Say this is the example for aluminothermite reaction. And this is an exothermic reaction. Why this reaction is very important? Because large amount of heat is released. Because this much large amount of heat is released, the reaction is used for joining railway tracks. Joining railway tracks. Okay, fine. And you have to balance this reaction and show. How do you balance? 2Fe, right? And here 2Al. That's it. So this is all about aluminothermite reaction. Fine. And coming to the next question. Explain electrolytic refining of copper with the help of labeled diagram. Very important question, guys. Electrolytic refining of copper. How do you draw the diagram? You have to show one cathode and anode, isn't it? Two rods. If this is connected to negative terminal, then I will call it as cathode. And this is connected to positive terminal, then this rod we will call it as anode. Say usually impure copper rod is taken as anode and pure copper rod is taken as cathode. And as an electrolyte, you will use copper sulfate solution. Right? So this is the diagram, and here you have certain impurities settled down, and this you will call it as anode mud, isn't it? So this is the diagram for electrolytic refining of copper. So they can ask you its explanation also. So what you can write here, first you mention impure copper rod is taken as anode, pure copper rod is taken as cathode. Okay, so when electricity is passed or when current is passed, what will happen when current is passed? Copper from impure rod comes into solution. Rod comes into solution, right? And from solution, copper plus 2 ions goes to cathode and there they are deposited. There they are deposited. Yes or no? So from here, copper comes out into Cu2 plus form. This Cu2 plus goes and deposited here as copper. So gradually the size of cathode becomes more and more, because this is the impure rod. From this rod, whatever copper atoms are there, they'll come as ions in the solution. From the solution, they will go to the cathode, and there they get deposited, right? So that is how you are actually purifying copper, isn't it? And now there is something called anode mud. So what do you mean by anode mud? Insoluble impurities will settle down at the bottom as anode mud. Okay, from this rod, whatever other impurities are there which are insoluble in the solution, they will go at the bottom and they'll settle down as anode mud. Clear? So, and this electrolytic refining, not only to purify copper, it can be used for silver, it can be used for gold, it can be used for zinc and various other elements. Clear? So, if you want a detailed explanation about electrolytic refining of copper, you can check it out my playlist, metals and non-metals. Check with different parts and you will have a detailed explanation on each and every concept. Clear? So this is one of the important question from metals and non-metals, that is electrolytic refining of copper. Fine. Let us go for the next questions. Distinguish metals and non-metals based on physical properties. So this is a very simple question. I think everybody can answer this question. Metals and non-metals differences based on physical properties. Say the first one you can give, metals are ductile, right? So non-metals are not ductile and they are malleable, and these guys are not malleable. Yes or no? So these are the very famous differences, and metals show high melting and boiling points and non-metals show low melting points and boiling points, right? Likewise, you have many differences, at least 4 differences you can mention. And here in case of metals are sonorous, that means they will produce a sound, and non-metals are not sonorous, isn't it? Say and they have luster, that means shiny nature, and these guys will not have luster, right? Any 4 points you can mention if it is asked for 2 marks. Fine. Next question, very important. What are ionic compounds? Write their properties. So a very important question, guys. What do you mean by ionic compounds? Ionic compounds are formed by transferring of electrons. By transferring of electrons. Okay. So, or I can say when two ions, like positive ion which is called cation and negative ions which is called as anion. When two ions combine, you know, what do you get? Ionic compounds are formed. Ionic compounds are formed. So this is another way you can define ionic compound. And they are asking, what are the properties of ionic compound? The first property is they show very much high melting points. And the reason for this can be asked for 1 mark. So why do ionic compound show high melting point? Because they have strong attractive forces between ions, isn't it? Because they have strong attractive forces between ions, you know, high temperature is required to break attractions. So that is the reason they show very much high melting points. The second property is they are actually soluble in water. Okay, and the third property is aqueous or molten ionic compounds can conduct electricity. Can conduct electricity. This is very important point, and they would ask you the reason why. It can be separately asked as 1 mark question also. They would ask you why aqueous or molten ionic compound can conduct electricity. It is because they can produce ions. Aqueous or molten ionic compounds have ions. Since they have ions, they can conduct electricity. Clear? And solid form of ionic compound do not conduct electricity. Only if ionic compound is there in a liquid form or in a molten form, that's in a liquid form, it can have ions, so it can conduct electricity. Remember, solid form never ever conduct electricity, because in a solid form ions are not free to move. Okay, only if ions are free to move, it can conduct electricity. When does the ions are free to move? When it is there in a liquid form. Clear? So this is the concept of ionic compounds, the most important compound. Clear? And they can ask you the reasons also, or the definitions, or the entire properties they would ask you, right? Fine. Next question. Write the dot structures and explain the formation of different compounds like NaCl, MgCl2, Na2O, MgO. Very important question, guys. It can be asked for 2 or 3 marks. See, formation of these compounds with the help of dot structure, you have to show them. See, let me discuss for NaCl and MgCl2. And if you want the compounds like Na2O and MgO formation, you can go to my playlist on metals and non-metals and watch the video. Let me show for NaCl now. See, what happens is you have to show it in 3 steps. And the first step, Na, its electronic configuration is 2, 8, 1, isn't it? So it's a metal. Always it will lose 1 electron. And after losing 1 electron, this gets converted as Na plus. Our electronic configuration becomes 2, 8, which is the most stable one. Likewise, our Cl, which was having electronic configuration 2, 8, 7, it will gain whatever Na has given electron, no, that electron is taken up by the Cl. When the element takes the electron, it gets converted into anion. This we call it as anion, and this we call it as cation. Isn't it? Fine. And now when an cation Na plus and Cl minus combines, you will get NaCl. So how do you show this formation in a dot structure? Actually, Na dot structure in the sense number of valence electrons, you will show it as dots. So Na has how many last electrons? Valence electron 1, so 1 dot. So around Cl, how many dots you will show? You will show 7 dots. Isn't it? Because the valence electrons are 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this electron will be shifted onto Cl. So after shifting, you had got your Na as Na plus, and Cl. Around Cl, how many electrons you will show now? 8 electrons. Isn't it? And Cl is there as Cl minus. So this is actually NaCl dot structure. Right? Say NaCl dot structure is very important. Likewise, you have to show for magnesium chloride, Na2O and MgO. All the 4 compounds are very important. Okay? Fine. And the next question, actually they can ask you like about alloys. They would ask you what is an alloy. So if a definition is asked, what is the definition you will give? Alloy is a homogeneous mixture, very important, homogeneous mixture of 2 or more metals. More metals. So this can be a definition for alloy, and they would ask you different examples for alloy. You can give brass, bronze, and solder alloy. Say for the solder alloy, they would ask you the composition. So what is the composition? Lead and tin. And they will ask you what is the use of solder alloy. So solder alloy is used for welding electric wires. Electric wires. Okay. Say this is what about alloy, and you have to know the composition of brass and bronze also. So brass is a mixture of copper and zinc, and this is a mixture of copper and tin. Okay, so that's all about the alloys. And they would ask you what is amalgam. So what is an amalgam? In a alloy, if one of the metal is mercury, Hg, that means mercury, then it is called as amalgam, right? And one more simple question, how do you prevent corrosion, they will ask you. So prevention of corrosion is also very, very important. So how do you prevent corrosion? Either by painting you can prevent, right? By galvanizing you can prevent, and also by alloying you can prevent, alloying, oiling, right? Anodizing. So all these are different methods of preventing corrosion. Clear? So these are the most important questions and expected questions from the chapter metals and non-metals. So if you can read these questions from this particular chapter, you can at least score 4 marks. Definitely 4 mark worth concept, 4 to 5 marks definitely you can score if you can read these many questions. Right? So acids and bases, I told you 4 mark, and from this chapter 4 mark worth. Altogether out of 25, 8 mark worth I have already told you. Now we will discuss about carbon and its compounds. Coming to carbon and its compounds chapter, guys, and this is one of the most important chapter for this year. So the very first question is, carbon can neither form C+4 cation nor C-4 anion, and why? So answer is very simple, because the carbon is small in size. Since it is small in size, it cannot lose 4 electrons at a time, and it cannot gain 4 electrons at a time to become cation and anion respectively. Okay, fine. Next question. Write electron dot structures for the compounds carbon dioxide, methane, ethane, okay, and it can be ethene, it can be cyclopentane, etc. Say you must know how to write the dot structures here. Say if you take up carbon dioxide, how do you write? C, and how many electrons you will show? 4 electrons you will show around carbon, and here you will put 1 oxygen, here another oxygen. So around oxygen we have 6 electrons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you will put the circles around the atoms where the circle should include 8 electrons around it, isn't it? Say this is how you will show the dot structure for carbon dioxide. Similarly for methane, H, 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 isn't it? So how do you show its dot structure? You will show it as 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons, and each hydrogen would provide 1 electron, right? And you will circle the hydrogen atom which should include 2 electrons, and you will circle the carbon that should include all the electrons, right? Dot structure for methane. So these are the 2 important dot structure, simple one. And they can also ask you the dot structure for ethane, ethene and cyclopentane, where its dot structures were clearly explained in the video carbon and its compound playlist. And also I have done important questions on carbon and its compound. In that video also I have explained the dot structures of these things. You can just refer to those videos where the links are provided in the description. Fine. And the next question, write the differences between saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons. So how do you write the differences? Say saturated hydrocarbons and unsaturated hydrocarbons. So what is the first point of difference you will give? Saturated hydrocarbons have single bonds, right? Single bonds between carbon atoms. So unsaturated hydrocarbons can have double bonds or triple bonds, isn't it? So this is the first point of difference that you can mention. And the second point is, saturated hydrocarbons can undergo a reactions called substitution reactions. Substitution reactions. Unsaturated hydrocarbons can undergo addition reactions, isn't it? So these are the two points you can mention. This can be asked for 2 marks if it is asked. So 2 points. Fine. Next one. What is catenation? So very simple. It can be asked for 1 mark. So catenation is nothing but self-linking capacity of carbon is called as catenation, isn't it? Fine. And the next question, where I have combined so much of concept, what are combustion reactions, oxidation reactions, substitution reactions, and addition reactions? So you must know their definition and example. So the first one is combustion reaction. So what do you mean by combustion reaction? When hydrocarbons are burnt in presence of oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, and a large amount of heat is liberated. So such a reaction is called as combustion reaction. So what is the example you can show? You can show methane on reacting with oxygen. You will get carbon dioxide plus water plus large amount of heat. Okay, so very simple. And the next one is addition reaction. So what do you mean by addition reactions here? Unsaturated hydrocarbons. Unsaturated hydrocarbons on addition of hydrogen, in presence of a catalyst, nickel or palladium, what do you get? Saturated hydrocarbons are formed, right? Say for example, this is unsaturated hydrocarbon. When you add hydrogen in presence of nickel, what do you get? You will get CC single bond with hydrogen atoms got added, right? So definition and example you can show. So likewise, you have oxidation and substitution. What do you mean by oxidation? Say for oxidation, this you can give as an example. CH3, CH2OH. We call it as ethanol. Ethanol in presence of oxidizing agent like KMNO4 and heated. This one is getting converted into CH3COOH. Oxidation means what? Removal of hydrogen and addition of oxygen. Say these 2 hydrogens we are removing. 2 hydrogens are equivalent to 1 oxygen. When you remove 2 hydrogens, you should add 1 oxygen. So it is becoming, in the place of H2, O will come. So COOH. So this is called oxidation reaction. So how do you define it? You can write, when ethanol is heated in presence of oxidizing agent, ethanoic acid is formed. This is called oxidation reaction. Okay. And coming to substitution reaction. What do you mean by substitution reaction? Saturated hydrocarbons, okay, react with chlorine in presence of sunlight. So what would happen when saturated hydrocarbons react in presence of chlorine and sunlight? Hydrogen atoms gets substituted with chlorine atoms, isn't it? So that is the reason we will call it as substitution reaction. Say for example, CH4 is there. When I heat this in presence of chlorine and sunlight, what is happening here? You have 4 hydrogens where 1 hydrogen will come out. In the place of 1 hydrogen, 1 Cl goes. So you will have a compound CH3Cl plus HCl. So remember here, saturated hydrocarbons only can show substitution. Unsaturated hydrocarbons can only show addition. Say based on this, 1 mark questions can be asked. Clear? Where you must know the entire concept. Coming to the next question, very important guys, that is explain cleansing action of soap. I have done a detailed explanation on this cleansing action of soap in the video called Important Questions on Carbon and its Compounds, and it is available in the playlist of Carbon and its Compounds also. Both video links are there in the description. You can go and check it out. Okay. And the next question, which is also important, that can be asked for 1 mark, is detergents. What do you mean by detergents? So what are detergents? Detergents are the salts of, or I can say they are sodium salt of sulfonic acid. Sulfonic acid or ammonium salts with chloride or bromide ions. Okay, with chloride or bromide ions. This is what the definition of detergents. Say along with these questions, they can also ask you about homologous series. What is homologous series? And give example. They would ask you, give example. This is another important question. You must define what do you mean by homologous series and you should give examples. Clear? So that's all about the important questions from carbon and its compounds that can come for 2021 exam. I think if you can read these many questions, you will definitely get 4 to 5 marks from this chapter. Right? So altogether from acids, bases and salts, 4 marks I told. From metals and non-metals, 4 to 5. And from this 4 to 5, so almost around 15 marks out of 25 I have covered. So I'll be covering the periodic table also, where if you can study those questions, you will get 4 to 5. So almost around 20 marks I'm covering out of 25. It's not a small thing. So concentrate on these questions. Definitely you will get marks around 18 to 20 marks. Okay, coming to the chapter periodic classification of elements. Under that, the very first important question is, what are the achievements of Mendeleev's periodic table? See, I have mentioned the 3 points here. If it is asked for 3 marks, these 3 points you have to mention. I'll just read out the points for you. Elements of similar properties could be grouped together, right? So whichever elements that were having same properties were placed in a same group in the sense vertical column. Okay, so that is the first achievement. Second one is he left gaps in the periodic table for newly discovered element. In case if any element is newly discovered further, for that we should have certain place in a periodic table, right? So for that he has given a gaps. For example, Eka boron, he has given a space and in that space it was mentioned that Eka boron. Eka boron, later it was invented as the element scandium. Eka aluminium, which is nothing but gallium. Eka silicon, and that place was filled up by the element germanium. Okay, so this is the major advantage of Mendeleev's periodic table. Third one, when noble gases were discovered, they were placed in different groups without disturbing other groups. When he was doing a periodic table for the existing 63 elements, noble gases were not discovered. But later, once he has given a periodic table, noble gases were discovered. For them, he has given a separate group. He placed them in a separate group without disturbing the existing groups. Okay, so these are the three achievements of Mendeleev's periodic table. Coming to the next question, what are the limitations of Mendeleev's periodic table? Limitations also, the 3 points I mentioned you, it can be asked for 3 marks. First point, no fixed position for hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen was showing similar properties with halogens as well as alkali metals. So he could not give justice for giving a position for hydrogen. And no fixed position for isotopes. Isotopes are the elements which have same atomic number but different atomic masses. Since Mendeleev arranged all his elements in the increasing order of atomic masses, he should give positions for all isotopes, right? Each and every element shows isotopes almost. So he could not give any place for the isotopes. Next one, atomic masses do not increase in a regular manner in going from one element to another. So he arranged all elements in the increasing order of atomic mass, but somewhere here and there some jumbling of elements took place, right? It was not increasing from element to element, right? So these are the 3 points that you can write for the limitations. Next question, very important, small definitions can be asked for 1 mark. What is Mendeleev's periodic law and modern periodic law? So how do you define Mendeleev's periodic law? Physical and chemical properties of elements are the periodic functions of their atomic masses is called Mendeleev's periodic law. And modern periodic law is the same sentence. Physical and chemical properties of elements are the periodic functions of their atomic number. Atomic number should come at the end. Mendeleev's periodic law, ending should end with atomic mass. Modern periodic law, ending should end with atomic number. But this sentence from here to here remains same in both definitions. Clear? So this is one easy way to remember the definitions for Mendeleev's periodic law, modern periodic law. Clear? Very, very important. Both definitions, 1 mark they can ask you. Fine. Going for the next type of questions. What is atomic radii? How does it vary across the period along the group? What is atomic radii? It is nothing but atomic size, right? It is the distance between nucleus and valence shell is called atomic radii, right? So what happens across the period, atomic size decreases, and along the group atomic size increases. So this must be your answer. And if you want detailed aspects of this, you can watch the playlist on periodic classification of elements, where I have covered all the topics in a very detailed way. You get a concept clarity, right? But the answer for the question is this, very simple. It can be asked for 2 marks, or 1 mark question also can be asked on this concept. And the next one, what is electronegativity? Ability of gaining electrons is called electronegativity. So across a period, what would happen? Electronegativity increases. And along the group, our electronegativity decreases. Okay, so usually electronegativity is there now. This electronegativity is inversely proportional to atomic size, that is atomic radii. Atomic radii across a period it is decreasing now. Since it's inversely proportional, our electronegativity increases. Okay, and along the group our electronegativity decreases. Fine. And the next one, what is metallic property? What is metallic property? Ability of an element to lose electrons is called metallic property. So how does it vary across the period? Across the period, our metallic property decreases, and along the group our metallic property increases, isn't it? Because our metallic property is directly proportional to atomic size, right? And electropositivity is the word we can also use for metallic property. Metallic property can also be called with the word positivity, isn't it? Okay, next one, what is valency? Number of electrons present in the last shell is called valency. Okay, say on this they would ask you quite an application based questions. They'll ask you what is the valency of this element, that element, how many valence electrons are there in oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, chlorine, all that. See, about this I have done application based questions on periodic table, whose link is also provided in the description. You can watch it so that you will get other aspects of questions based on a chapter. But these are the direct way of asking, simple way of asking I have explained. Other than this, the next question that they can ask is, what is Dobrynin's triads? What do you mean by Dobrynin's triads? It's a group of 3 elements, isn't it? Say for example, lithium, sodium, potassium. Group of 3 elements where atomic mass of middle element is average of atomic masses of first and last element is called Dobrynin's triads. Okay, so this is the example for Dobrynin's triads. And the next one is, they may ask you, what are the limitations of Newland's law of octaves? Okay, say Newland's law of octaves is applicable only till calcium. Okay, and the next one is, he did not give no gaps for newly discovered elements, right? Say these are the 2 limitations you can mention for Newland's law of octaves. Say these are the direct way of asking from the chapter, but application question can be asked from this chapter, where application based questions you will observe in the video application questions on periodic classification of elements. Link I'll give it in the description, right? So that's all about the chemistry chapter's important questions. See, if you can read these questions perfectly by understanding, I think you will get 20 marks, almost near to 20 marks out of 25, guys. Definitely 20 marks you can score out of 25. It's not a small thing. So you have to definitely concentrate on each and every question that I discussed in today's video. Don't neglect and share the video with maximum friends so that everybody gets benefit out of it. And likewise, I am doing a video on physics chapters, that is part 2, and part 3 is on biology chapters, right? So do watch the 2 videos also so that you get 100% benefit to score maximum of 60 marks out of 80. Clear? So thank you so much. See you with the next video, that is part 2 on physics chapters. Fine. So till then, take care and do subscribe our channel to learn the concepts in a easiest way and in a detailed way. Thank you so much.